Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
And all right, welcome everybody to episode number 116 of Sports Cards Live. It is Saturday night, October the 2nd, 2021. My name is Jeremy Lee. I do want to thank last Saturday's guests, Sam Farber of Golden Auctions and David Rossfully from Guess the Grade. Later tonight on After Hours, our guest is longtime collector and hobby entrepreneur John Baier from Slabshelf. Want to let you guys also know, tomorrow night on Collectible Live, my guest will be Eric Myers, also known as Howley Hustle on Instagram. He's also a sales team concierge at PWCC. We will go live on the Collectible YouTube channel tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next Saturday's guest, we have Darren Prince from the Prince Marketing Group. The stories he will be able to tell us will be phenomenal. And Scott Rogowski of HQ Trivia fame and host of Wild Cards on the Network app. I want to shout out, as you can see on the ticker, my guys at the Big Three Hockey on Instagram. Be sure to give them a follow. I also want to shout out the Sport Card Expo, guys. This is November 11th to 14th in Toronto. I will be there. I cannot wait. And then the weekend after is the Western Canadian show just outside Vancouver, BC. I will also be there. Can't wait for that. Want to make sure you guys are checking out Whatnot, great supporters of the show. And want to shout out you podcast listeners. As you know, I really appreciate all of you and all the subscribers and viewers of this show. We whip past 3,800 subscribers. If you are not yet subscribed, please take a second and do so. I would, of course, greatly appreciate it. As always, tonight, your comments, your questions are in play. And let's get to tonight's guest. He got his first taste of the hobby visiting a card shop with his father after going to a Chicago Cubs game when he was 14 years old. He's been a collector ever since and entered the appraisal game in 2007. He's written articles for Forbes magazine. His favorite teams are the Chicago Bulls, Cubs, and Bears. Why not Blackhawks? We'll get to that. His favorite athletes are Michael Jordan, Walter Payton, and Ernie Banks, originally from the northwest suburbs of Chicago, currently hailing from downtown Chicago. Let's bring him out. Michael Osacky, welcome to Sports Cards Live. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Jeremy, happy Saturday. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, it's my pleasure. It's great to have you, and I will let you know. I'll let the listeners know I am under the weather today. I have been sick for the last couple of days, but I could not cancel this and reschedule. Too many shows scheduled ahead, so we are going to power through this and do the best we can. Perhaps we cut it a little short, maybe don't go 2 hours, but we'll see how we feel as the discussion progresses. So let's get into you though, Michael. Tell us a little bit about your hobby history, not so much the appraisal piece, but just your collector angle.
Yeah, so as you said, I got started in 1997. At that time, I would go to local card shows, which were typically held on the weekends at hotels, Holiday Inn, Ramada Inn. And I would just go up to dealers and ask them questions about the hobby, about cards, and just trying to gain a better understanding of the hobby, because during the week, I would read the Beckett monthly price guide. And then, so like I had that during the week, and then on the weekends, I look forward to actually having in-person conversations. So that's kind of how it got started over 20 years ago.
Right on. So then you got into the appraisal game, and you are touted as the lead appraiser for PSA. So what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so last year, PSA opened an appraisal division. They partnered with my company, Baseball in the Attic. And right now, if a customer has already gotten a card or an autograph graded or authenticated, they can choose to have it appraised by myself. There's an extra fee, and that's where the appraisal part comes in. Pretty soon, I think next month or maybe by the end of the year, it'll all be streamlined on the PSA card website. And for new customer or for new entries, when a customer wants to submit something, they can just check a box and say, yes, I want this to be appraised. But right now, it's just for already previously graded and authenticated items.
Okay. And so how did you manage to form this this partnership with PSA?
So this was a discussion that PSA and myself have been having for many, many, many years. So this wasn't something that just came about during the pandemic. What would happen is a lot of times the retail customer would get their items back and they would have no idea what the value was. So it kind of made sense to have someone like myself come in and opine on the value of PSA graded items. Obviously, the appraisal service is not for everyone. If you're a dealer, you probably already know what the items are worth. But on the appraisal side, not only can the customer learn what the value is, but additionally, they can take that appraisal letter and submit it to their insurance carrier to be properly insured. So I think that's an important value add there.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Okay. I want to get into the appraisal business because obviously you've been doing it longer than you've been working or had this this PSA partnership. But let's just go ahead and say hello to we have Adventures with Troy. Happy to do it, Troy. Great to see you. Alf Godet, good evening. Birds on the bat, what is up? Latrell, what's good with you? Bobby Baseball, always great to see you. Global, you're the beautiful human. You are. Jeremy S., good evening. Studio, always great to see you. Chrissy Buckets in the house, what is up? Skeppy in the house, good to see you. My guy Yamwax, awesome to see you, Yam. Anthony George says, always the best guest and best content. Does anyone else wait all week long for Saturday? And I appreciate that. Troy agreed. And Jeff McMahon says, hello, good evening, Jeff McMahon. Great to have you on board. James Fertetta, good to see you as well. So let's get into the appraisal business. How do you become a sports card and memorabilia appraiser? When did it really start for you?
Well, back in the day when I was going to card shows and I was questioning these dealers, at the same time, I would see people approach these dealers with these duffel bags or briefcases full of cards. And the dealer would make an offer to the person, okay, for the whole briefcase, I'll give you $5,000. And in my head, I was like, well, so the dealer is obviously going to make some money, but he's kind of appraising it, right? He's telling you what the value is. And I thought that there was a conflict of interest. And as I would walk through the show, I would see this situation repeat time after time. And then weekend after weekend, month after month, year after year. And I was like, wait a second. There's thousands of people involved in this industry, but there's no one appraising who's independent and telling people what the values are. And that was like my aha moment.
So basically, you're at the shows, you're seeing these dealers appraising the card. I mean, I do this all the time at a card show. When I'm there set up and someone brings me cards to sell me, they want you to kind of make an offer. So you're inherently, you are appraising their cards, and then whether you keep it in your head or you say it out loud, if it's a cash offer, a trade, you've always always have a couple numbers in your head, right? You have the trade value, you have the retail value, maybe the liquidation value, all these sorts of things in your head. So you saw this going on and you thought to myself, basically, was your aha moment that all the people bringing the collections to sell were at a disadvantage?
I thoroughly believe so, Jeremy. I really did. And that was proven, like I said, time and time again. And so back then, I was a young kid and still in school. So there was nothing I could do to become an appraiser, right? I had to go to school 5 days a week. But that situation always stuck with me, and I knew I wanted to be part of the hobby. And I was unsure like how I would make my inroads. And I quickly learned that was going to be my path.
And so did you action on that when you were young? Like you're in your teens and you're at these card shows. Did you start appraising way back then?
Not as a teenager, no. But when I got to college, at nights on the weekends, I started doing it. And then, so what would happen is after my classes, I would pick up the phone and return phone calls and return emails and just try and help people really understand the values of what they had. And it was interesting, Jeremy, because some of the conversations I had were exactly some of the things that I had been seeing for years, where people would tell me they would go to a huge card show and they would go up to a bunch of dealers and they would say, okay, I'm going to give you X amount of dollars. And then there would be questions. Well, the person would say, well, how much money are you going to make? What percentage, so I was like, yeah, I think I'm on the right path here.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. So you become a formal appraiser. You have actual qualifications. There's a regulatory body. Can you speak a little bit to what that looks like? Like what qualifies you?
Yes, the appraisal organization is called International Society of Appraisers, and they credential and certify all different types of appraisers, art and jewelry and coins and dinosaur bones and what have you. One of the biggest things about being a certified appraiser, besides having the repetition and the skill set to correctly identify, understand what's in front of you, is the ability to actually formalize an appraisal report, because there's different objectives that people need. Meaning sometimes people want an appraisal for donation purposes. Sometimes they want something for insurance. And the values that have to be included in those two types of scenarios are vastly different. When it comes to a donation, we're dealing with fair market values, which is essentially current auction values. Because if something was to be donated, let's say the Cooperstown Hall of Fame, and the person is going to get a tax write-off, the fair market value is what we need to go by. But with an insurance appraisal, we deal with retail replacement values. And a lot of times those values are inflated because we don't know at some point in the future when a claim is going to be made. We don't know when the fire is going to destroy your house, when the flood is going to destroy your basement, when someone's going to break into your house and steal something. So that's why retail replacement values can be slightly higher than fair market values.
So you must have seen some cool things during your career so far along the way. I want to get into hearing a few stories you may have there. Before you do, I want to say hello to, we got Overtime Grading in the house. I think he means to say hello, boys. Tom Bullard, good to see you. There it is. Hello, boys. 2 messages down. Steve Tingwall, good to have you. Troy says, so true to have your cards appraised and insured. Home insurance has little or no coverage on sports cards and collectibles. Tiger Jordan, good evening. Best show in the biz. Happy I can catch live. Happy to have you live and appreciate that, Tiger Jordan. Anthony George, also known as Kyler Murray Gems on Instagram, says, who wouldn't want to be able to pick the brain of an appraiser? Amazing. I haven't seen this before, but Jay Lee always pushing the envelope. I appreciate that, Anthony George. So tell us some stories, Michael, about some of the things that you've been able to appraise over the last few years.
One thing I'll preface it by saying is, I see these incredible items at auctions month in and month out. Well, I know where some of the best material is buried and will never, ever be auctioned, will never, ever, be in the public eye, which I think is incredible. Just a couple of months ago, I appraised probably one of the best baseball card collections out there. It was over $30 million. But as far as some of the stories go, so for many years, I did a lot of public speaking engagements. Of course, in the past 18 months, there's been no public speaking because of COVID. And I was outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and a gentleman and his son came up to me after I was done speaking, and they had a signed Babe Ruth photo. And as you know, Jeremy, Babe Ruth signed a lot. His stuff, his autograph today is always in demand. There's more demand than supply. So a signed Babe Ruth photo could be $4,000 or $5,000, maybe a little bit more depending upon what it is. Anyways, so I told the guy $4,000 or $5,000, and he goes, "Oh, that's it?" And I said, "Yeah, that's it." And it was kind of busy that day. I had to get back to the airport, and he goes, "Well, Michael, look on the bottom right-hand corner. There's a date." And I look, and it says August 16th, 1948. And I jumped up out of my chair because that was the day that Babe Ruth passed away. And I said, "You mean to tell me that this might be the last ever signature of Babe Ruth before he passed away?" The guy goes, "Yes." I said, "Prove it to me." The guy takes out like his satchel, his like a duffel bag kind of thing, and throws all these papers on the table. I go, "Sir, I'm in a rush. I have to go back to the airport. Just tell me." He goes, "I'm trying to show you." Long story short, on this guy's wife's side of the family, there was a priest. Well, that priest was Babe Ruth's priest. And the babe was in the hospital in New York for a couple months because he was sick with cancer. And I think when he was on his deathbed, he knew that day he was going to pass and called in the priest. They had their last words, and he signed this thing. He signed the photo. So it was incredible. So that's just one story, and I have a ton of others.
Think of another one in the background right now while I ask you this. So you appraised a $30 million collection just the other day. Is that the most valuable collection that you recall appraising? Is it by far? No?
No. I've appraised more valuable collections.
Have you ever appraised collections for celebrities, for athletes, that sort of thing?
All the time. And they are very interested in a donation appraisal because for them, if they have something that's worth $100,000 or $200,000, which to me is a lot of money, but for them, maybe they're worth $50 million. They want the tax write-off. So I'll fill out the IRS form 8283. They'll submit it to their lawyer, their CPA, look at the tax write-off, and then they'll donate it to, let's say, the Football Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame, whoever it is. And so, yes, I do a lot of work with athletes and celebrities for sure.
That's pretty cool. Any names you could share with us, or is that confidential?
It's confidential, unfortunately. I would love to, but these people want to make sure that they keep their stuff private.
I got asked just
sure.
In case. Any other stories pop into your mind of cool thing like that? Babe Ruth story is a really cool story that you could share. Anything else pop into your mind?
Yeah, years ago I met with an older couple. They were probably in their early 80s, and they had a complete 1915 Cracker Jack baseball card collection. So there's 176 cards in that set. And there's a Joe Jackson card. There's Christy Mathewson, Honus Wagner, yada, yada, yada. And after reviewing all of the cards, I said to them, I never asked this question, but I'm going to ask you this question. What do you think the value of this collection is worth? And the reason I never ask people is because people always are going to say, oh, it's worth $10 million. It's worth, $1 billion, some crazy number. And they go, we think it's worth about $2,000. I go, no, you're way, way off. And the husband looks at me and says, well, I think we'd be happy with like $500. I go, no, you're way off the other way. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, this collection is probably worth $75,000, $80,000. And the husband and the wife look at each other. Okay. The husband looks back at me and says, listen, young kid, we've had a rough week. The last thing we need is someone like you to lie to us about our baseball card collection. I said, sir, you got $80,000. You may need to hire an off-duty security guard or a policeman with a gun to escort you out of this building. And then he looked back at his wife and they started to cry and they hugged each other. It was a special moment.
That's a nice feeling to be able to enlighten somebody that, especially if the money was significant to them, that, hey, you got a windfall here for sure. Have you ever brokered a deal? Like, have you ever, you give an appraisal, do your customers or clients, do they ever say to you, so, okay, thank you, Michael, for appraising this. Now, what can I do with it? What do you recommend I do with it? Do they ever ask you that, take it to the next step?
They do. And I usually don't like to engage in that type of service because, again, I feel like there could be a conflict of interest because there's, let's say, a dozen different auction houses I could refer them to. And if I only refer them to one or two, it's like, well, then what's wrong with the other 10? But what I will do is if they say, we're looking to sell this, I will give them the best options, meaning private sale, traditional auction house, eBay, something, so like I'll kind of give them a general understanding of how they can best monetize it. But as far as giving them a name of an auction house or a person, I don't really like doing that because I just feel like there is some sort of benefit to me, and I don't like that.
Well, let me probe that a bit because I'm thinking to myself, you are actually in the business of lead generation for some of these auction houses. You're not actually, but you could be. So what would be wrong? And I'm asking this is a legit question. I don't have an answer in mind, but what's wrong with you forging a relationship with an auction house and, receiving some sort of commission because everybody wins, right? The auction house wins, the client wins, you win. If you can help these people convert these collections into cash, which is where they may need to be at that point in their lives. Is there, I understand the potential conflict of interest that you're thinking, but is it really that big of a deal? I pose the question to you and to the chat. What does the chat think
Sure.
of that? I'm curious what you guys out there think as well.
Sure. I guess it's possible I could, but in my opinion, I think every collection could potentially go to a different auction house. For example, if I see a bunch of Michael Jordan items, I know in my head where that collection should go versus a 1952 Topps baseball card set. That should go somewhere else. And so I guess technically I wouldn't need to forge relationships because I know of all the auction houses. I could just say, go here, go there, go there. But one thing that's really interesting, all the years of doing this and appraising, a little over 2/3 of my appraisals are never for sale, will never be for sale, meaning people need it for estate planning purposes. They're going to donate it to their kids, their grandkids. They're going to do something with it other than sell it. So it's not like that happens that question doesn't happen every single time I do an appraisal, because most of the time the stuff is never for sale.
Do you know the total, do you track the total value of all the appraisals you've done, like back to a certain point, or maybe you started documenting it a couple years ago? Do you have that number?
I have it probably in Salesforce. I track everything in Salesforce. That kind of helps me.
So what's your estimate of the total appraisals you've done?
You mean as far as fees paid to me, or like the total value of the items?
The latter. I wouldn't ask you how much you've made in your career, but I'd ask you how much you've assessed.
I mean, it's got to be close to $100 million because I just did one for well over probably, I don't know, maybe. Well, and the funny thing is, right, most of these collections have 3 to 4 or 5x in the past 18 months, right? So a collection, I'm thinking about a collection right now I appraised 4 years ago for $5 million. That collection might be $50 million today, with some of the card, so it's hard to, because everything's going up.
Yeah, for sure. Let me ask you this. The last year and a half has been, obviously, we've seen an upward trajectory in the values overall of quality pieces. Collections have gone from being worth, I don't know, $50,000 to $500,000 now. Has that been a boon for your business?
It's been huge, because what happens is if the collection is $50,000, people are content with keeping it in their safety deposit box or maybe in a safe at home. But when we're talking about $500,000, that's real life-changing money, and people get scared. I'm telling you, people are scared, and so people panic. I go, "Oh my God, what do we do?" And a lot of times, people think that they can just call their insurance company and get a rider, or use one of those cheap insurance companies that you see at some of the shows. Well, you could, but I'm telling you, when push comes to shove, when you file a claim, you might be SOL, because I see it time and time again. And I do a lot of work with all the biggest insurance companies, Allstate, State Farm, Chubb, Age, but some of the lesser ones, there's a lot of problems because people only pay whatever it is, $30 a month, $20 a month. And then they submit a claim and nothing's documented, because what happens is you tell them, I have a collection, it's $500,000, and nothing's been line item. It's just one big dump. So you have to be careful with that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, good. We got some great questions coming from the chat, so I'm going to go to them. First of all, with respect to that, with you sort of being a forging deals or connecting clients with auction houses. Let's see. JC says perceptions matter in this business. Even the whiff of improper behavior can taint or tarnish your reputation. And then I saw a comment up here. No, not that one. Right here. Steve Tingwall says, does a conflict of interest even mean anything in this hobby anymore? There's certainly several perceived conflicts of interest out there, most definitely. And then I want to go up to right over here. First of all, say hi to Rich Frank. Hi to Chad. Mark, great question. He says, if fakes and counterfeit cards get past even the most experienced graders in the industry, how often do you see them get past appraisers? What kind of liabilities do you face with that happening?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mark. A lot of the things that I see are vintage in nature. And it's, in my opinion, fairly easy to detect some of the forgeries or reprints when it comes to like a 52 Topps Mickey Mantle. A lot of the modern cards are kind of what's getting past some of the graders or grading card companies. And that's really not what I see a lot of.
Okay, great. And then Anthony George says, imagine being the guy who has to tell someone their prized possessions are fake. I mean, that happens to dealers at card shows all the time, though. Maybe not prized possessions, and maybe the people bringing them to you are trying to, slide one past you anyway, but definitely not fun to have to do that. Jordan Rivera says, have you ever appraised or seen a case of 86 Fleer basketball?
No, never.
And Canadian sports card collector, what is the process of appraising a one-of-a-kind item?
Yeah, that's actually what I spend a lot of my time doing. People call me with these one-of-ones, like a one-of-one Kobe Bryant logo man or whatever it is. And I have to back into a dollar figure for a variety of reasons. So it's a little bit different for everything, depending upon if it's a ticket stub versus a card versus an autograph. So there's really no set path across, but it can be difficult. It really can. Now, sometimes if it's super difficult, or if I think it's going to take an ungodly amount of time, meaning I have to look at what I'm doing from a financial perspective for the client. So I charge a set hourly rate. And if I know it's going to take, let's say, 10 hours, but my gut tells me that the item isn't worth X amount of dollars, and I'll just tell them, you know what, I don't think it makes sense to have me appraise this item because it's going to cost too much money versus what the item is potentially worth.
Right. Fair enough. Jeff Hart says, how did you get started to become an appraiser and also build up the knowledge base? So we did cover some of this at the beginning, but maybe speak to the build up the knowledge base part.
Yeah, that's not a good question, because I've never worked for a traditional auction house. And really, that's how a lot of people get started or got started in the hobby, in the industry, learning at auction houses, writing auction descriptions, feeling, seeing, touching. So what I would do instead is I would go to as many card shows as I could and look at the items, smell the items, touch the items, ask questions. People probably hated me because I very rarely would buy anything, but I would just touch everything and look at everything and take photos. And then I would go back home at the end of the day and I would compare pictures and see, wait a second, I saw this card and I felt this card. They're the same, but that card felt weird. So maybe that card's a reprint because it was too smooth or something like that. That's really how my knowledge base got started.
All right. Very cool. Joe Perot, good evening. Aloha. I believe you're on vacation in Hawaii right now. Hope you are having a great time. Definitely. Drake's PC, great to see you as always. Lucky K, in general, how much is it to insure a $100,000 collection? Is there a general rule of percent per 10K or 100K? Is that something that's in your wheelhouse, Michael?
No, but I have seen in some chats people do talk about that. So I don't get involved in the actual, how much an insurance company will charge you to have insured. So unfortunately, I just don't know.
So how much does it cost how much do you charge to appraise a collection? Is that something that you can talk about on the show tonight?
So I charge a flat hourly rate, and that's the only way to do it, in my opinion, because what happens is, and I remember years ago, there was an appraiser that was charging based on a percentage. Well, that's no good, because you can artificially inflate the value of the collection, and then you yourself can make more money, right? If you say, okay, I'm going to charge you 10% of the value, and you value the collection at $5 million, and so you're going to get $500,000. No, that's the wrong way to do it. So the only way to do it is just charge for my time, a flat hourly rate, regardless of what the collection is worth or not worth.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that keeps it pretty fair. Good evening, Spurs Cards. Luigi says, is it harder to authenticate a players whose autographs have evolved over time?
Yes, but don't forget, I am a certified appraiser and not authenticator. Now, I do see autographs every day, Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, what have you. But yes, Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, just like you and me, our autographs have changed over time. Most people's autograph changes over time. It gets more shaky, maybe less flowy, maybe bigger. So I would say in the vast majority of signers, yes, it does change.
Yeah. You're right. When you say that our autographs change, I mean, you see players' autographs change, you see your own autograph change or signature. There was a period of time where I was signing like 30,000 tax returns, and there's no way you can sign your whole name. And so when we see all the criticism, and I'm not saying it's not justified when these guys they're getting paid for the autograph, and I had to do it just as a function of my job. But you'd sit there and just sign. It's like you get to a very abbreviated version of even your initials when it comes. So if I was someone who had to sign my autograph for money, I think people would be pretty disappointed in what they were going to get. But I understand that. So listen, you have a background in finance. How do you apply that to the hobby? We're going to move a little bit away from the appraisal. If anybody out there, if you guys have any more questions about appraising, the business Michael is in, feel free to put them out there. Here comes one right now from Bradley. We'll get to this one first. I'll give you guys a few seconds here. Get some more questions out there if you'd like, and then we'll move on to the next subject. Bradley says, what's the biggest autograph collection you have seen? Quantity and value.
Quantity would be a couple thousand. I think maybe it was 2,127 autographs across all sports, Hall of Famers and non-Hall of Famers. However, I will say the vast majority were Hall of Famers. And just because you have a Hall of Famer, it doesn't mean it's valuable, right? Like a Duke Snyder signed ball is not that very valuable. And then the second question was value. And this guy also had a huge card collection too. So the value was millions of dollars for everything. I don't remember the breakdown or the break off between the cards and the autographs, but I do remember the quantity.
Yeah. And so how long did it take you to, like, how many hours of work is it to to appraise a couple thousand autographs?
Well, I had to fly there, obviously, to be in person, and I was there for 3 days, so working like 9.5, 10 hours each day. But then the hard work is actually when I return home to my office and actually start to assign values to everything, right? Being in person is just looking at the condition, taking photos, maybe seeing if there's COAs attached to the items and whatnot. But so it was, about 30 hours on site, and then everything might have been another 60. I think it was maybe like close to 90 hours for everything. It was a very large collection.
And when you're doing a collection like that, do you sort of sit there and put all the autographs into different piles? Like, these are the $100, these are the $500, here's $1,000, and then the bigger ones, do you kind of do it like that to save time, or is every single item logged and reported on?
So every item is logged and reported on. However, as I'm going along and I see something that's not valuable, that should not be included, I'll just throw it, or I'll put it like in a basket or a bag or a box. I'll say, okay, this is the box of the items that will not be included in the report because the value is essentially nil.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, next question I want to ask is right here, Jeffrey Hart. What are a couple examples of the best vintage unopened material you've seen?
That stuff is hard to find, but I've seen some 1974 Topps unopened case, a 1975 unopened case, that's a big year. It was Robin Yount's rookie, George Brett's rookie, Jim Rice, Gary Carter. Yeah, so 75 was big. I don't think I've ever seen anything unopened from the 50s, the 60s, some packs. I don't think I've ever seen any cases from the 60s, but packs.
Yeah. All right, great. Okay, so let's get back to that then. You have a finance background. Curious, how do you apply that to the hobby? I mean, you do your appraising, you do your collecting, and you're a hobby participant just like the rest of us are. How do you apply that to your approach?
I apply it because I've seen so many cycles, and I'm really good at understanding panic. And panic is important in the stock market, but it's also important in our market, Jeremy. So when there's a sense of panic, that means something. Okay, well, if the panic is just starting, is this the top, or if it's kind of close to the end, is this the bottom? And that's important for me as a collector because I'm an appraiser, but, sometimes maybe I want to buy something for my collection. I collect 33 Gaudy cards and Cracker Jack cards. And so it's important to know where we are in the cycle, right? It's like buying a stock. You could buy a stock because you think it's at a discount, 10% off. But if I know the general market's going to sell off 10%, well, then buying that stock at 10% off is actually not good at all. So I look in the sports card market too. Okay, well, all right. Well, since February, the market's sold off a lot. But if I think the market's going to sell off even more, then even though there's a discount today, maybe I should wait 8 weeks because it's going to be even cheaper.
And do you actually act upon that?
I do. I do. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to follow up on that in a moment, but a couple more questions on the appraisal side of things. Canadian sports card collector asks, had anyone ever disputed an appraisal that you've completed?
Surprisingly not. However, there were two disputes, not on the appraisal. There was two. One was a Babe Ruth signed ball. And the family told me this great concocted story. And I'm not going to share it with you, but it was this long story on how the ball was obtained. And I took one look at the ball and I said, this ball was not signed by Babe Ruth. I don't know who signed it, but it wasn't him. And, this ball, the same story was told to the family over Christmas every year to 30 members of this family. So when I told them it was no good, they thought I didn't know what the heck I was doing. So I told them, I said, listen, the ball is no good. And, I'm not going to do an appraisal report because there's nothing to do. And I'm not going to charge you any money. And so still to this day, they're upset because I told them that this ball was not real.
Shooting the messenger, right? Nothing you can do about it. Like Rich Frank says, 90% of his collection would be in that box of worth nothing. Lucky K, thank you for reminding everyone to hit the like button. I appreciate that. Luigi says, when you assign value, do you factor in geography where the collection may be sold?
No, but it's actually it's interesting because years ago there was an arbitrage play, right? You could buy, let's say, an Ernie Banks signed baseball in St. Louis and then sell it in Chicago because obviously people in Chicago want Ernie Banks signed balls because they're all Cubs collectors. But no, that never comes into play.
And what about this? Rich wants to know, what about inflation? Do you consider that in the today's rate or the future?
No, I don't consider inflation because there is an effective date of the appraisal, meaning I do a home inspection and I write up the appraisal report and I have to include an effective date that the values are assigned for. So we don't know what's going to happen in a year from now, 6 months from now. They could be up, they could be down. So the answer to your question is no, I don't include inflation.
Yeah, I didn't think you would. It's going to be as at the time, right? For sure. And plus, you don't know what's going to happen with inflation either. So, Matt Jones says, another great guest and Saturday night show. Thank you, Matt Jones. So back to the way you kind of look at the market and the way you time the market. Funny, where you don't use that when you are doing appraisals because you can't. It's sort of against the whole foundation of doing an appraisal. But you do time the market. Tell us about the prediction or the statement that you made back at the end of October of 2020. What was going on in the hobby or one of the niches within the hobby?
Yeah, so Pokemon cards were really, everyone was talking about Pokemon. And what I posted to my Instagram post on October 28th was, this is the top of the Pokemon card market. And additionally, I said that pretty much virtually all Pokemon cards are going to sell off between 50 and 75% from here. And one of the reasons, and there actually were many reasons why I made that call, but one of them is being an appraiser for many years. I talked to different people every single day. There was the entire month of October 1st through that call in October 28th. Not a single person that month that called me wanted to talk about baseball cards or football cards or basketball cards. All they wanted to do was talk about Pokemon and how they can get these Pokemon cards graded. I don't think I got a single call about Pokemon in the prior 6 or 7 years. And here we are this 1 month, I'm getting no calls on sports cards. It was all Pokemon. That to me was like, okay, this bubble is going to pop.
So you can, I have your post ready to go. I'm going to share it, okay, just so people can see what you posted, because it's sort of just evidence that that you did that. So this is posted on October 29th, 2020. And I remember that time Pokemon was very hot, and you're saying do not buy them. They are in free fall with no bottom in sight. Most will sell off 50 to 75% from the peak. And then it looks like some people were questioning you. I don't see that. I can't drill down to the comments. And you stood by it. So what happened after that? Did what you say came true? Did it free fall? Like, and where did it kind of, if it was at 100% of value, where did it land?
Some of them sold off 80%, with the exception of the 99 Pokemon Charizard PSA 10. That actually went up, but even a PSA 9 sold off drastically, double digits. Everything sold off a lot.
So I have two more here. Talk about the end of January 2021 when the Michael Jordan PSA 10 sold for $720,000 on Golden Auctions, and I'll let you talk about it. Then I'll show your post.
Yes. So on January 28th or 29th of this year, Golden sold those two Jordan PSA 10s for $728,000. Now, before that sale, I think the prior sale was maybe $350,000. So literally, it went from $350,000 to $728,000 in a matter of a few weeks. Additionally, I learned, because I think Ken Golden maybe did like an Instagram chat, he sold two more privately at that same level. So he sold four of them at $725,000. And being that I have a financial background, that is what we call a blow off top. Like that basically means game, set, match, the party's over. And so, yeah, I posted because people were, me being in Chicago, people wanted to buy Michael Jordan cards. And I said, no. This is not the time to buy. This is the time to sell.
So you accurately predicted, because right here you say 86 Fleer MJ PSA 10 sold for $720. The card has gone up too quickly. Look out below. And I mean, and then up here you say this card just sold. In fact, two examples sold for the same price at auction. This is the definition of a blow off top. Look out below. So, I mean, you called it. That was the top of the market. At least it was very close to the top of the market. And, it's one of those things where you must kind of be like, well, told you so, but I wish I didn't have to. Is like, what goes through? How do you feel about that post?
Listen, at the end of the day, I'm a collector. I own cards myself, right? So I want them to keep going up, right? Because that's great. But nothing goes up forever. No stock goes up forever, even though seemingly some stocks do go up, but eventually when they go down, it's hard and it's fast. And just like in the stock market, it could take a year, 12 months for a stock to go up, let's say 80%. Well, it can erase 80% in 2 days in the stock market. Well, guess what? In our market, the same thing can happen. These sell-offs are much harder and faster than they are on the way up.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. That's already off the screen. Okay, couple of comments here. Latrell Spreewell wants to know, have you ever appraised a Precious Metal Gems green basketball card?
Nat, call me. No.
Nat, call me, right. Matt Jones says, I guess we need to follow his Twitter. I'll put that back up in a minute. And Steve Tingwall says, okay, you've pointed out a couple tops of the market. Do you see anything that still has some run in it right now?
Yeah, so usually what happens is at the National, we see tops that happen at the National, and then we kind of sell off for the rest of the year. But this year is a little bit different because of COVID and what's been going on. So I think the National might have been a bottom in some of the cards. And I think that's important to know. I think now some of the top tier cards, top tier players might be a good time to buy because some of those prices have been depressed for, I guess, since February.
That makes sense to me. I think a lot of people kind of called the the National is maybe being a kickoff point again, and it seems like things are healthy. We've got a big golden auction going off tonight. We've got the PWCC Premier auction that just started, and then they're going to their monthly. So lots of action in the landscape right now, and also the Memory Lane auction here. I got this catalog from them just the other day, and this thing ends on October the 9th. So lots of amazing pieces being auctioned. I guess we'll see a lot more comps being set in the very near future here. Do you ever buy at auction house?
Very rarely. And when I say rarely, maybe once every couple of years.
Yeah. Where do you do most of your buying?
Well, I don't do a heck of a lot of buying now just because I'm so busy with the appraisals. But sometimes, especially here in Chicago, someone will give me a call and say, "Hey, Michael, I'm not interested in an appraisal. I just want to sell this. I kind of know what the value is. Make me an offer, and I'll make them a fair offer." And that's usually how I get some of those cards.
All right. And Timeless Cardboard says, "Is there a card or item that took your breath away?" And great show. Thank you, Timeless Cardboard.
Well, I definitely think that Babe Ruth signed photo from August 16th, 1948. Definitely, as I said, I jumped up out of my chair. I just couldn't believe it. But some of the other like vintage stuff, like some T206 cards with some rare backs, that always kind of just blows me away because I see so many T206 with the common Piedmont or Sweet Cape roll backs. But anytime I see like an Uzit or some of those, I just go, or drum, I'm like, whoa.
And the Babe Ruth autograph that you think might have been the last one he ever signed, what was the appraisal value that you assigned to that?
Yeah, so he asked me, he goes, so is this photo still $5,000? I said, no, and this was, years ago. I said, it's definitely six figures. I said, it's going to be worth at least $200,000, but I don't know, because what's going to happen is at auction, people will step over each other for, this item.
Definitely. Okay. You told me a quick story. I want you to share this with the audience. We have a few things we're still going to get to, everybody. We're probably going to not go as long as usual just because I'm under the weather, and we are going to still have another episode with John Baier from Slabshelf. We'll probably start that in about 20 minutes or so. But for you, Michael, I have my these Teemu Selanne Game-Used gloves that hang behind me. They're hanging behind me all the time. I sent you some pictures of them. I even have a photo match sort of document that came with them. I sent it over to you, and I'm gonna wheel a free appraisal out of you here at $0 per hour. So, are you in a position to appraise my game worn Teemu Selanne gloves? And for anybody who doesn't know, if you don't know who Teemu Selanne was, he's one of the best hockey players of all time. He has the record for the most goals in a rookie season with 76. The most points in a rookie season with 120 something, I believe. And one of the most beloved players of all time just for his personality. Really, really great guy. And these are actually worn from, I believe, his second year in Winnipeg with the Winnipeg Jets. He went on to play with the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, won a Stanley Cup in 2007. You can just see the wear in these things. I don't know how long he wore them for, but definitely a while. They're both signed, but they're in silver, so you can't really... There, you can sort of see that one there. You can't really see them, but they are both signed. Well, there, that looks okay with the light bouncing off them. So I did send Michael some pictures earlier today. Michael, are you in a position to appraise these? And I got my fingers crossed.
I think his nickname was the Finnish Flash, and I believe he was the Finland team captain in 2002 at the Winter Olympics. Now, in something like this, and I think someone asked a question, so how do you appraise something where maybe there's no comps or even no recent comps? Well, he played on the Winnipeg Jets from 92 to 96. What I did find is one of his teammates, Hall of Famer Keith Kachuk, game-used gloves, and he played also from 92 to 96, as I said. And again, Hall of Famer. Last year in December, 2 pairs of Keith's game-worn gloves, also signed. So one sold for like $650, one sold for $770, so about $700. I did find a pair of Teemu's Ducks game-worn gloves that were also signed. and that sold for $350 about 2 years ago. So I think your gloves are about between 600, probably 550, $600, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Okay. That's lower than I was expecting, and I'll tell you why. Because so Keith Tkachuk played for the Winnipeg Jets too, but he was not loved at all. Because what happened was when the Jets were packaging themselves to be sold to Arizona, to the Phoenix Coyotes, they had to get rid of one of those big contracts, and they decided to trade away Teemu to Anaheim, and they kept Keith Tkachuk, and that was kind of the wrong move at the time because Teemu was just a much better player, and Tkachuk doesn't have the best reputation as being kind of like a player that people were like, where Teemu does. Teemu's very much well loved amongst all the sports. So knowing what I know, I would take what you said, and I would just maybe chip it up a little bit, not a ton, maybe by 10 or 15%, just because I think that Teemu would garner. Here I am disputing your right, disputing your appraisal, but again, it comes down to what's it worth to you too, right? And do you ever have that happen where you assess something and someone says, well, okay, great, you say it's worth $750, I think it's worth $1,000, and I'm not, like, not that you care if they say that because you're doing it for specific reasons, but how often do you get that sort of response, like the one I just gave you, where it's like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but maybe they want to add a bit more information or that sort of thing?
Well, most people inflate what they have. Most people think that what they own is worth more than it is, just like their automobile, their home, whatever, their art. Sometimes, I'll give an appraisal. Let's say it's $1,000, and someone will say, well, it's worth at least $1,200 to me. And I don't really know what that means, but I guess that means that they're going to, keep it, or, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Excuse me. To Jordan Riker's comment, yeah, I would love it if you'd send me some soup. Finish Flash, that is right. Anthony George says, very good episode. Would love to see 1/10 of the stuff you have. Maybe the best job in the world, for sure. Here we go. If Tkachuk is 700, Selanne is 1,500, in my opinion. I mean, Tkachuk isn't the best comp for Selanne because they're so different. But hey, I'm not gonna argue. I'm just gonna have my own thoughts, of course. And then, of course, Steve Tingwall calls me out and says, Jeremy being that guy. Yes, of course. Josh Packham says, does an auto on a game-worn item take away from the value when you appraise it?
No. In fact, a lot of times it could increase the value depending upon who the player is. But, I mean, a game-worn anything is pretty special. I think that's actually one of the pinnacle of sports collecting is I know people love their cards, but to own something that's game worn, whether it's a glove or a hat or a jersey, is pretty special. And to have a signature on it, that's special too.
Yeah. Okay, good. Because I think the question stems from a lot of people have said that game worn items, you want them the way they were on the ice and they're not autographed on the ice. But to me, it just adds more to it. So I'm with you on that. Bobby Baseball says, many of us were watching Jeremy's Sports Cards Live that evening when we all heard about the Jordan blow-off top. Memorable night in the hobby. It definitely was. Frank Schneider says, Michael, do you use any experts in your appraisals? Like if you run into a group of game bats that you were unfamiliar with?
So being affiliated with PSA, if it's a bat, I would call John Taube in New Jersey, who's the PSA bat authenticator. And if it's an autograph, Kevin Keating or Bill Corcoran, who are the two of the best PSA authenticators.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Lucky K says, moving forward, do you see SGC or CSG graded cards closing the gap to PSA values? I'm also assuming that the appraisal is based on the brand slab.
So it's really difficult for me to I don't know about SGC or CSG. Are they going to close the gap? But one important piece of data that I have that Jeremy has and that everyone has who's at the National, if you walk past the booths of HGA or SGC who wasn't grading or CSG versus PSA, you would see this huge line at PSA versus maybe no people, like zero at some of the other booths. So I think that's important to know, right? And then the second question here is the appraisals based on the brand slab. Yes, of course, but most of the collections I see are raw, not even slabbed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Jeff McMahon, I believe Kachuk is in the Hall of Fame, actually, but thank you for the compliment on the Teemu gloves. I got them from a guy in Winnipeg myself. And Troy says, what does Michael collect and what is his grail not for sale item?
I'd tell you, but I have to kill you. No. I collect vintage baseball primarily. Like here, let's see, what do I have here in front of me? Like a 33 Gaudy Babe Ruth.
Oh, just nonchalant.
Well, this one's cool too. This is like the holy grail of football cards.
Oh, wow.
The Bronco Nagurski. Now it's a 2, obviously, so it's at the very bottom of the scale. But those are some of the items that I collect, just old stuff.
Well, those are 2 amazing. The Bronco's an amazing card. That's a Mount Rushmore card. So, I mean, that's unbelievable. I wasn't expecting to see those. So thank you for showing those. Jordan Riker says, I'm late to the party. Michael, if you could change something about your job, what would it be?
Oh, God. I just wish I had more time, which is not a bad thing because I love my job. And someone, I think it was Anthony earlier in the comment section, said that I have the best job in the world. And yes, I agree. But at the end of the day, there's only 24 hours in a day, and I'm only one person, and I can only see so many people in a given day. And that could be an issue sometimes.
Yeah, time. Not that you can change that, but maybe take some time management courses or something like that, right? Okay, tell us about Halloween in your neighborhood. This is a cool story, guys, that I know about. He told me about this, but I just thought this was something worth sharing. You don't hear this from everybody. Tell us about that.
So, as you said at the very top of the introduction, I grew up in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. So I grew up very close to Michael Jordan, and I grew up in the 90s, right? So, oh my God, talking about being a Bulls fan, a Michael Jordan fan was special. And so we would go to Michael Jordan's house for trick-or-treating, and not him, but someone who was there, I don't know, a housekeeper, someone would give out the best Halloween candy. And when I say the best, I mean like full-sized candy bars, not like the little Baby Ruth, full size, right? And on Jordan's gate is a big 23 because that was his number, 23. And so obviously, like that was his house. It's got the big 23. It's littered with trees. You can't see behind it. But there was always a huge line of cars waiting to go trick-or-treating and see that year what the Jordan household gave away. And without fail, every year they took care of the people who did partake in the trick-or-treating.
That's pretty neat. Hey, who doesn't want to go to Michael Jordan's house for Halloween? Okay, I want to go to Chrissy Bucket's comment here. Without looking at collectible, how would you value a Michael Jordan game-worn signed rookie jersey? And I guess this is like a process sort of question.
Yeah. It's difficult because depending upon who the player is and team and sport, they're issued different amounts of jerseys per year. So, for example, in baseball in the 50s, you were only given 4 jerseys per year, 2 home and 2 road, and that was it. And then at the end of the year, they were given down to the AAA affiliates for use. In this particular case, MJ Game 1 rookie, it's very difficult. I do think Chris is right. I think there is one actually trading on the secondary market on collectible. But in my opinion, in order for me to value it, I would want a jersey expert to look at it before I came in and gave an appraisal for it.
And then you would go from there based on whatever they said about the piece itself.
Yeah.
And is a lot of what you do based on comps, like historical sales of similar items, same or similar item?
I wish it was. I mean, comps are important, but a lot of the work I do are, have no comps, one of one, or let's say a special signed ball. So that hasn't, and even if there's comps, don't forget, the whole market has changed in the past 18 months. So the comps, anything that's sold, up until last 18 months is, I shouldn't say garbage as it relates to comps, but everything is now many multiples higher.
So Chris is saying, say a number. He wants a number. We want a number. Can you put in an estimate on a Michael Jordan autographed jersey?
Off the top of my head, no. I'd have to see it in person, see pictures, see what it looks like, see the tagging, the stitching, the use, all that stuff.
All that stuff. Fair enough. We're not going to put any more pressure on you to give us a value on an item that is not in front of you. Okay. And then we're going to go to this question here from Jordan. Are there training programs or degrees designed specifically to prepare somebody to become an appraiser?
Unfortunately, there isn't, right? And that's not great. That's not a great answer for Jordan here, but people don't go to school, whether it's high school or college, to becoming a sports appraiser, right? There are no sports appraiser schools. You just have to get your hands dirty and really take in as much wealth and knowledge as possible.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so let's change topics now and talk about, it's kind of funny. Well, funny, it's ironic, it's coincidental, but you're also working with Collectible, doing some content, doing a show with them. Tell us a little bit about how that came about for you and what you're doing for them.
Yes, I started that show about maybe 11 or 12 weeks ago. Right, I think the first show was right after the National. And that came about. I talked to their CEO, and we had a nice conversation. And content for Collectible is very important. And they thought someone with my expertise would really add value to the people that invest in Collectible and the people that trade on Collectible, the people that look at their content. And so I also thought it made sense to have a weekly show. It airs every Wednesday on the Collectible YouTube channel. So feel free to check it out.
Yeah, check it out. It's called What's It Worth, I believe, right? And you basically, people call in with items and you help to appraise those items. And I think you do have a bit of an insight before as to what these things look like in that. So it's kind of funny that we both are doing content with and for Collectible. So kind of neat. Now, based on the stories you've told us, it seems to me like, we know Ken Golden now has a show coming out soon called The Golden Touch, based on his experiences. It seems to me like you should have a show too, or you could have a show too. I mean, you're seeing a lot of these things. So are you going to have a show? Are you going to have a bigger show than Collectible, than What's It Worth on Collectible?
Yes, it's going to be next year. I'm working with the Chicago Cubs and the Marquee Sports Network, which is owned by the Chicago Cubs. It's going to be a weekly show that will air on the Marquee Sports Network channel. And I'm excited for it. It's going to be an appraisal show, going to be appraising all different types of things, going to be talking to Cubs Hall of Famers, going to be out and about in the city. It's going to be fun.
That's cool. And are you excited about this? I mean, I could tell in your voice there you got a little bit excited. I mean, it's one thing to have a content show on YouTube and that, like we're doing right now, but it's another thing to be on a network that's going to reach, thousands, if not millions of people. What's that like? I mean, Ken Golden must be pretty excited to be getting a show on what we think is going to be a major platform. How do you feel about kind of taking that next step? And as for, how will this impact your profile in the hobby, your profile in society as the go-to appraiser in this space that is blowing up right now?
I'm very excited, and it became very real this week because all week long during the Cubs pregame show, they started showing the segments that I taped for them months and months ago. Those segments are currently on the Marquee Sports Network website. And so seeing myself on the Marquee Sports Network during the pregame show, it really hit home because up until this week, it's been talk. I did tapings. It's been more talk, more tapings. And now it was actually on the show. I'm seeing myself. I'm getting feedback. It's been incredible. And yes, I am very excited.
Yeah, that's really cool. Congratulations on that. Here's a question from Spurs Cards. If a client has lost their collection, has an insurance company disagreed on the appraisal value, and in turn your client received less, or any similar stories like that?
Yeah. So if I appraise a collection and the client submits the paperwork to their insurance carrier, I never have any problems. The problem is when a client doesn't have an appraisal and submits something to their insurance carrier and then there's a flood or a fire or whatever, that's usually when the insurance company and the client kind of butt heads. And obviously one doesn't want to pay much money and the other one wants to get paid a lot of money.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. I want to shout out, that's going to be my buddy Rich Barone, the mayor of Canada. What is up, even though he lives on Long Island? Good evening, Rich. Good evening to you. JG says, making me cough. How are you? You can read that for yourself. Very funny, JG. And Jordan Riker, we might end with this one. Would you rather throw out the first pitch at a Cubs game or be the guest singer for Take Me Out to the Ball Game?
The guest singer, Take Me Out to the Ball Game.
Yeah, hilarious. Right on. Troy says, help Jeremy out. Please hit that like button so we can continue to get these great Saturday night live streams. Thank you, Troy. And Anthony George, also known as Kyler Murray Gem, says Jay Lee and J.A. Adonde, he's a big sports card guy, I don't know how to say it, need to have a show together. I honestly think he will have a spot on one of the ESPN's channels soon. I don't know if you're talking about me or J.A., but either way, thank you for that comment, Anthony. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, Michael, before we end this? And we're going to have After Hours with John Baier from Slabshelf coming up shortly after this show. Anything to finish off?
Really quick on Collectible next Wednesday. It's an all Michael Jordan show. And I am going to be appraising a 97 MJ John Baier PSA 10. Golden Auctions right now tonight has one closing. I think last time I checked, it's at 50,000 for a PSA 9. I'm appraising a PSA 10 next week.
That'll be cool. So check that out, guys, on the Collectible YouTube channel. Both of us do work with them. And of course, I'll remind y'all that my show on Collectibles YouTube channel is called Collectible Live. It's on the ticker right now. We are going live tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern. And my guest will be Eric Myers, who's a well-known hobbyist in the space. So check that out, please. There's Rich Barone with his actual name. Great to see you, my guy. I miss you. I hope you will be at the Expo, guys. Don't forget the Expo in Toronto, November 11th to 14th. The Western Canadian Big Show. This is a great show just outside Vancouver. Is the weekend after. So make sure you guys, if you're in the area, you can make it. Come down. I will be at both those shows. I cannot wait. John Baier, if you are watching, listening, we are going to go live in about 10 minutes or so on After Hours. So I will see you in the back room of that studio. That is Studio B. We're in Studio A right now. Everybody else, I got through the whole show without coughing, pretty much. Thank you for joining. Michael, final comments to you, and then we are done.
Jeremy, thank you for having me. It was a blast. I hope you feel better soon. Look forward to speaking with you again in the near future.
I appreciate that. Pleasure to have you as well, Michael. Everyone else, there we go. There's John Baier. He will be with us. We will be going live very shortly, everybody. So thanks again for joining. Thank you, Steve Tingwall. Thanks, everybody, for your great comments and questions tonight. From Michael, hope you enjoyed this. I feel like you did. That is great. Give me about 10 minutes or so. John and I will be back on the same channel for After Hours. We'll see you then. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.